Good morning, everyone, and happy Wednesday. We have a great show for you all this morning on Rising. Max Alvarez and Alyssa Farah are in for Team Rising and will discuss Biden's pick to head up Customs and Border Patrol.
But first, the Biden administration is unveiling plans to distribute COVID vaccines to children. According to the White House, the initiatives will be put in place as soon as the FDA and CDC recommend vaccinations for children aged 5 to 11. Meanwhile, the FDA is expected to approve the mixing of COVID shots, meaning Americans can get a booster shot from a different manufacturer than their first shots. According to a study from the NIH, mix and match boosting is safe and increases antibody count no matter the combination. Robbie, what confuses me about this is they keep saying we're about to do this for children, and it's expected to be approved. Why? Like, why don't they either just approve it or not approve it?
I mean, this has bothered me throughout the entire pandemic. Government's getting ready to do something. If it's going to be approved, just approve it now. Right. I mean,
because you then undermine confidence that they're really rigorously. It's like the jury will be back with its guilty verdict.
Exactly.
In 3 hours, but it must continue deliberating.
Exactly.
Like, well, what are you deliberating about?
Especially because, lives are on the line. Not a lot of lives with children specifically, because they have a lot of natural protection from severe negative health outcomes with COVID, but they can spread it to older Americans. Even older Americans who are vaccinated are at more risk than children. Colin Powell, vaccinated, but had this immunocompromised condition, a rare, well, not rare, but a blood cancer.
Right.
And and kids are going to be seeing their relatives for the holidays coming up. Mm-hmm. Right? Isn't it kind of important to get this approved and actually get kids getting shots, if they want to get them, before Thanksgiving, for instance?
But they got over their skis on this earlier, remember, where they said, we're going to approve booster shots any day now for the entire country.
Any day now.
And then two people at the FDA are like, I quit.
Right.
It's our job. It'd be like if the jurors heard the judge say they'll be out here with their guilty verdict in 3 hours. Jurors would be like, well, we're out of here then. What are we here for?
And they don't feel any pressure. No hurry, no rush. It's not like there's a pandemic going on where hundreds of thousands of people are dying.
Yeah, and the exchange, so on the question of whether children are going to get, ought to get vaccinated, the exchange between Sanjay Gupta and Joe Rogan was an interesting one there, where ultimately Sanjay's point was, look, if a kid does get infected with COVID, he has a significant chance of myocarditis and these other complications that come along with the vaccine. And if he gets the vaccine, then he's less likely to spread it. And so the kid is less likely to spread it. And so Gupta really took it back to a public good, like get your kid vaccinated for the public good argument, which I think a lot of people are willing to do that. I think fewer people are willing to get their kids vaccinated for the public good. Right. Because you're just, when you're asking anybody to sacrifice, it's fine to ask me to sacrifice. It's hard to ask kids to sacrifice. But Gupta's point was always like, okay, you guys keep comparing, you keep looking at the complications associated with the vaccine, and then you compare that to the risk of dying from COVID. He's like, no. Look at the other complications associated with COVID. And then that's your actual comparison. Because if you want to actually do an apples to apples, you'd say, well, what's your risk of dying from the vaccine versus dying from COVID? Right. And with children, actually probably a little bit higher with COVID.
Yeah, it's very, very low risk either way. I don't think it's crazy for kids to make either decision. I think families should be, but right now they should be able to make that decision, and they're not, because the government won't let them, even though we all know the government will soon grant permission to do it. Yeah. So it's just idiotic.
And so negotiations over Biden's agenda continued yesterday at the White House. President Biden met with centrist Democrats and progressives throughout the afternoon in hopes to secure his social spending package. Kyrsten Sinema met at the White House with Biden, and while she denied to get into details of the meeting, she said it was, quote, good to reporters on Capitol Hill. Thank you, Sinema, for that window into these negotiations. Jen Psaki released a statement on the meeting saying that the president is more confident this evening about the path forward and that there was broad agreement for an urgency in finalizing the package. People are talking about the end of this week for a potential deal. What people didn't talk about coming out of the meeting was instructive. It seems like free community college is one of the things that is on the chopping block.
Right.
But a lot of other priorities are still in. They're talking about taking the child tax credit just to a 1-year extension. Which to me is likely means the end of it, because people say, "Wow, Republicans would never let that fail." It's like, okay, well, not sure you know the Republican Party.
Well, there's not going to be much legislating going on a year from now, right? But on the other hand, I do think if you're going to lose something, free community college seems like a thing to lose. I mean,
it's already
community college
cheap.
is
Yes.
cheap, right? You can, that aspect of higher education is still affordable. You can take out smaller loans to pay for it if you absolutely don't have
subsidized
money.
federal loans.
Yes.
Right.
So that is not when we talk about how unaffordable the higher education system is, that's the one part of it that still functions semi the way it's supposed to.
And one problem with that is that Biden got a lot of pushback when he initially proposed this from HBCUs, who said, if you make community college free, then a lot of the people who are going to HBCUs now are going to, well, this costs a bunch of money, this one's free, so I'm going to go to community college. So then he threw in, okay, well, we're going to subsidize HBCUs too. So then that massively expanded the price tag of the thing. So once he had to roll back on HBCU funding, then they're angry about the community college funding. So then you have to roll back. It's one of those things that kind of goes together.
And while the administration is fighting to get its climate policy in the package, Biden's agenda suffered a blow after Manchin expressed opposition to a program to reward electric utilities for switching to renewable energy. And as Ryan mentioned, the price tag gets lower and lower. Democrats plan to cut free community college, as we just discussed, and curtail the child tax credit program in the final package, according to sources close to the talks. But according to Ro Khanna, who also met with Biden yesterday, the child tax credit, universal pre-K, Medicare expansion, money to expand Obamacare, and climate investments are still included. And Congresswoman Pramila Jayapal has floated $1.9 to $2.2 trillion as the estimated price tag of Biden's spending bill. Senator Joe Manchin says it's possible that Dems could reach a framework on the bill by the end of the week. So there's still some stuff in there. Obviously, the excitement progressives might feel for this legislation probably getting lower and lower. And I know a lot of progressives who have their hopes and dreams are far out there to begin with. Probably the most pie in the sky version of this plan was not going to satisfy certain progressives. So I'm sure there's some disappointment that it's being further curtailed.
Right, though not surprised necessarily.
Right.
I think progressives done a pretty good job so far of when Bernie came out and he said, when Manchin said he wanted 2 to 4 trillion, including this other infrastructure package, and Bernie came out and said, no, I want 6 trillion. And as a result, he got this $3.5 trillion top line through reconciliation. And progressives done a good job of saying, no, that's the floor. Like that was the compromise. Not really. I mean, they knew that they were putting that in as
have progressives gotten smarter about saying we want 100 trillion, and then and then the compromise?
Well, at some point
you don't offer what you want. You offer something absurdly larger than that, so that you compromise near what you want.
That's kind of what the 6 trillion was.
Yeah.
Like the Sanders camp thought that was the outer limit of what they could propose that would be taken remotely seriously, and could then stretch the boundaries. The climate stuff is going to be where the question of the votes comes in. Because if they bring this down to a place where nobody can look at the bill and say that you're going to meet the targets that you have set out, your 50% by 2030, then Jared Huffman, congressman, said he's going to vote against it. And you don't have many votes to spare.
No.
And so with Manchin saying he's not going to let Congress deal with utilities, which is the bulk of emission reductions that were previously in there, with him pushing subsidies for natural gas and fossil fuels, that is how the thing I think could ultimately go down. Because it's like if it's a difference between a 1-year child tax credit and no child tax credit, okay, the progressives will cave and take
Obviously.
1 year. But if the climate targets just aren't being hit, that could be a thing where they say, no, this is climate denialism, we're not doing this.
Right. But the climate stuff the climate stuff might not be as popular among moderates who want who want greater spending on social protection measures, the child tax credit, that kind of thing. Whereas there's a more of a political, ideological component to doing something about climate change, right?
Yes, I think that's right. And there's increasingly special interests around clean energy,
Right.
the clean energy industry. But right, those are running up against the oil industry, which still has a hold on a lot of Democrats. So they have, so that's the push. Plus, this key swing vote in the Senate happens to be a coal baron, because this is a Howard Zinn version of our.
Next, we'll tell you what's on our radar. Stick around.